Hi, welcome to PRSA Nashville's Diversity Chat. I'm Ivy Johnson, Diversity Chair for this chapter. This chat is an online discussion about diversity and inclusion initiatives in the communications industry. Please send your comments and questions during the live feed. Our guest today is Elizabeth Hart. Just a little bit about Elizabeth. Hart's love for journalism and medicine led her to a career that has spanned 17 years and counting. Her responsibilities over the years have ranged from media and marketing to nonprofit work, and now as the Associate Director of Communications and Media Relations for the Tennessee Department of Health. Her dedication to the field has also been evident through her membership in the National Association of Black Journalists, National Coalition of 100 Black Women, National Association of County and City Health Officials, and the National Public Health Information Coalition. She is a former board member of the Indianapolis Urban League Young Professionals, a former board member of the Indiana Minority AIDS Coalition, I need more coffee, and a Girl Scout troop leader. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I woke up with little sinus issues this morning, so we're gonna get through this together.
All right, let's jump right in.
We're gonna jump right in.
Why did you decide to pursue a career in public relations?
So it's interesting. So when I was in college, an undergraduate, I graduated from Alabama A&M University, which is an historically Black university in Huntsville, Alabama. And when I was there, I was working in broadcasting, and I worked for the radio station WJB 90.9 FM there in Huntsville, Alabama. And I had wonderful mentors attending a Black college. That's one of the great things about going to a Black college is the mentorship that you receive. And so I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I thought, well, I'm not really sure about broadcasting, but I know that I really had a passion for medicine and for people. And so actually through some of my professors and some of my mentors, one of them I'm still very good friends with Michael Burns there in Huntsville, Alabama. And they really guided me down that pathway of public relations. So once I graduated, I returned to Indianapolis, Indiana, which is my hometown. And I started working for the Indiana University School of Medicine. And it was an amazing opportunity to really dive in to public relations. I was a novice. I was new, freshly out of college, and I'd been writing for broadcast. And so it was very different than to write for print and write for press releases. So I had some amazing mentors there at the Indiana University School of Medicine, Pamela Perry, Joe Studeville, Mary Hart, and they really groomed me into the PR professional that I am today. And being able to take that passion for people and medicine and health and then merge it with my experience and my knowledge of broadcasting was how I kind of got involved with public relations. Was there for several years and then went on to become the director of marketing for the Indiana State Department of Health. Okay. So I transferred from medicine to public health, which a lot of people tend to put us all in the same bucket. It's a little bit different. Yeah. And so I transferred into public health and was there for several years. And then, as you mentioned, I did some nonprofit work after that. And then I found my love again and was back in public health in Memphis. So I was the public information officer for the Shelby County Health Department located in Memphis, Tennessee, and was there for 5 years before they recruited me up here to the state office. And so now I'm the Associate Director of Communications and Media Relations here at the Tennessee Department of Health. And so it's amazing being able to do what I love and merge it with public relations, which is what I'm really, honestly, I'm great at it. Sometimes you gotta have to toot your own horn, right?
Yes.
And so it's an amazing field. I love what I do. And there's never really a day off because I love what I do. Part of my responsibilities at the State Department of Health are managing the social media. So Facebook, Twitter, for those of you who are watching or who may watch later, I hope you're going to follow the Tennessee Department of Health on Facebook and Twitter. If you have young people in your home, if you have children, we have a TN Strong page, which is dedicated to young people never starting to smoke. So again, that's part of what I do. But I also handle with public relations side, working with media, so external communicators and the journalists alike. So certainly that's how I kind of got into the business. Okay. And as you mentioned, it's almost been 17 years that I've been working in public relations and medicine and health, and it's a wonderful field to be in.
Cool. You're accomplished. So I see, let's see, Kia Jarman said, hey, y'all. Hey, Kia.
Hi, Kia.
And Yvonne Chapman Hendry's there. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne.
So next question. what makes diversity and inclusion important to public relations?
So it's incredibly important. Obviously, when I was in Memphis for several years, and then even now at the state office, it is important that public relations reflects that community. So that the marketing that you're doing, you're talking to the community, it reflects that entire community. It's important that people are in those positions who understand that community, who also can give that kind of insight and that knowledge that maybe others don't know. It's, a lot of times we talk about diversity and we think about racial and ethnic, and that's of course very important. But diversity is not just black and white. It's also looking at socioeconomic backgrounds. It's also looking at different genders. And then, of course, also looking at those with sexual orientation. It's important that everybody, and we talk about diversity and inclusion, meaning everyone is included at the table and that everyone has a voice. Whether you actually have someone on your staff, if you have some consultants that you're working with, if you are actually having a committee, it's important that everyone has a voice, especially in health. I always say that, HIV and AIDS doesn't care whether you're black or white or Hispanic, or if you are homosexual or heterosexual. Again, it's about understanding the entire community. And it's important that individuals from all walks of life are at the table to actually give that knowledge and that information and be reflective of their community.
Yes. Good. So let's see. What is your opinion on the addition of inclusion to the diversity conversation? You kind of mentioned it.
We kind of mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, it's not just racial, black and white and the like, but also nowadays, really, it's about having millennials at the table as well.
Yes.
We tend to, again, put these individuals in categories, right? But there are people who have been at the table for quite some time, like my mentors that I mentioned earlier, and they're still going, and they're sort of PR pros, and they're still cranking out the product even at IU and at Alabama A&M University. But they also need to bring in younger people, millennials. They're that next group. I'm not technically a millennial. I'm right outside that category, but they're the next generation that's going to come through, and so it's important that we are including them of all walks of life, and making sure that, again, it reflects the community that they serve, and not just maybe your immediate community, but your broader community. So if you're in public relations and you worked in an agency and you have a certain client, you not only look at the clients that may be buying the sales or what have you, that you're working for with that agency, and that's your client. You want to think about potential clients, right? So we don't want to put anyone else aside. We want to make sure that we are inclusive of everyone so that they either buy our product, or in our situation with awareness, it's about making sure that everybody feels welcome and that they understand that we are talking to everyone.
So let's see, next question. Do you see a difference in diversity and inclusion needs for government communications teams versus the private sector, especially in public health? Do you see a difference?
There is definitely a difference. So especially with our marketing, I make sure that even on social media, as I mentioned, so I'll put another plug in, make sure you're following the Tennessee Department of Health on Facebook, as well as on Twitter. But it's important that everyone see themselves in the posts that we make, and the conversations that we have. One of the wonderful things about working for the Department of Health is because we do embrace everyone. We've had Hispanic Heritage Month back in the fall. This past February, we had Black History Month, where we recognized African American men and women from all walks of life, who have had some experience, or they are physicians, or they are nurses. We recognize, the people we don't usually hear about. There's always those physicians that everyone knows, right? We have a wonderful former commissioner who is African American, Dr. Robinson. So of course we had to give him a nod, right? But we also were able to give highlights to individuals at Vanderbilt and Meharry. And it's important. It was amazing to get the comments and the feedback from people who were just so happy to see other people like them, and really strive for maybe even their young people, their teenagers at home, maybe they're in high school, maybe they are mentoring young people, to see individuals who look like them, because then they can be in that place. We've received the same feedback for Hispanic Heritage Month. It was amazing to see all of the comments and people who knew these individuals and had wonderful things to say about the staff. We highlighted a couple of staff members, and so it's really great to see yourself on those posts, especially again when we talk about public health and awareness, because whether you are one end of the spectrum or the other, and that also includes political affiliations as well. We want to make sure that again everybody feels inclusive, especially with regards to health and public health. Everyone should wear a seatbelt. Everyone should be getting the vaccinations. Back to school time is coming. So it doesn't matter your walk of life, you need your vaccination. And everyone should be getting a flu shot, and everyone should know their status. And as far as their HIV, we just had an HIV testing day not too long ago. And again, we want to make sure that we are reflective of all walks of life. So not just urban, but also rural. We've got a lot of rural areas in Tennessee, as you very well know. And so making sure that we are talking to those individuals. And as an African-American woman, and I've never lived in the rural area. I'm from an urban metropolitan city of Indianapolis, and then I moved to Memphis, and now I'm here in Nashville. And so I do call upon individuals in communities that I don't necessarily know a lot about. And it's important that we reach out and learn from them so that we make sure that we are inclusive of them as well.
That's good points. Okay, let's see. Jennifer's here. Jennifer said hi. Also, looks like Yvonne has some questions. How do you factor in diversity for senior citizens? I guess she means senior citizen clients. And also, there's another question. Does politics play a role in public relations as it relates to diversity?
we both work for a government agency. So I think, yes, it does. I think it's important that there is diversity at the table. You don't want a lot of yes people at the table, because if that's the case, you're not going to have a lot of variation. It's going to be all the same thing, right? I think it's important that we have varying backgrounds, both in political affiliations. We didn't talk about religious affiliations as well, making sure that there are individuals at the table who kind of can give that additional information, that additional knowledge, because that's going to help your campaign. It's going to help, whether it's an awareness campaign, whether you're trying to do a pitch for new products, whether you're trying to get new clients, if you're a small PR agency wanting to take on new nonprofits, perhaps, and consulting gigs. Maybe, again, making sure that everyone is represented. And so I think, yes, politics kind of can play a role. Sometimes we have to zip our lips. Let's just be honest. But there are times where it's important that you do speak up, because my background is different than others. And so if I don't see it the same way as everyone else, it's important that I voice that, whether I'm if I'm the only vote and I'm outvoted, that's one thing, right? But at least I voiced my concerns, or I voiced my opinion. I think it's important that there are individuals at the table. If you are one of those individuals, and if you are, for example, the only Black individual on staff, maybe on senior leadership, sometimes you can make sure your voice is heard. If you're the only Latina or Latino on the staff, making sure that your voice is heard so that they understand that somebody else is at the table. I think we've heard, all too often, sometimes we've heard of companies where their board or their committee may look a certain way, and then an issue comes up and they go back and in retrospect realize we probably should have had a more diverse board or a more diverse committee. So that's kind of a roundabout way to answer your question. Yes, politics does play a role.
And okay, it looks like we have a question from Kia, but also Yvonne asked about diversity for senior citizen customers.
Yeah, so I think diversity is also important with senior citizens, because we definitely don't want them to feel left out. We at the Tennessee Department of Health have been doing a lot more information and awareness on certain types of campaigns, and Again, I am not a senior citizen, not yet. And so I have called upon individuals who are in that particular category. We have a wonderful advocate, a patient care advocate at our office, who I oftentimes will knock on Sally's door and say, hey, I need your advice. I need you to help me. And that's a great opportunity, even though she doesn't work in public relations. As the social media person, I recognize that's my weakness. I don't know much about that. And I recognize my ignorance. And it's important that you recognize that, right? And then you call upon people who are experts in it, so that you're making sure that your language, the types of photos that you're using are right for that category. So to answer your question about seniors, that's very, very important, and making sure that we don't forget about them. A lot of times we tend to think about seniors, we think about end of life care, or we think about Alzheimer's, but there's so many other wonderful things that we can talk to them about. In public health, we encourage walking and exercise and nutrition. You know, it's not all morbid. We definitely want to make sure that we are talking to them about current situations and current things impacting them. And you can only do that by reaching out to advocates and people who work in that community or who are members of the senior citizen category.
Gotcha. So I see Andrea's here, Andrea Lindsay. Hey. And Kia's question. As you think of language used in public health, particularly for those looking to practice PR, are there words or phrases that should be avoided because they lack equity or inclusive lens? That is a good question,
That
Kia.
is a very good question, Kia. We'll talk offline. No, so yes, definitely in public health, we always try to be very sensitive to categories. So for example, right now, currently in the state of Tennessee, we are experiencing a hepatitis A outbreak. And so, and it's not just Tennessee, there's multiple states around the country that are experiencing that. And one of the things that we talk about is making sure that we have consistency in the language and being sensitive to different categories and groups of individuals. So here in the state of Tennessee, one of the categories of groups that is being impacted by the current outbreak, at least here in Tennessee, are men who have sex with men. And so we definitely are sensitive to that. And we actually do outreach to the LGBTQ community, as well as work with the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, and making sure that our language is reflective of that group and being sensitive to that group. And so again, that goes into having diversity at the table. We actually have staff that work in our Office of Minority Health who also help with our language for different types of cultures. There are different, for example, we think of Latino and Latina as like a category, but from different countries, they have different cultures, right? And so we want to make sure that we are reflective of that and making sure that our language is very specific to that particular group or that subset of our community. So that's a great question. The one I can think of right now is the MSM, just because it's the topic right now, and unfortunately because we are going through an outbreak. But that's very, very important that you, again, bring people to the table and run it by them before you start using that language. If you're really not sure, it's better to ask the question than before you put it out there, versus putting it out there and then having to pull it back because you put something that was insensitive or perhaps may have offended a particular group of individuals.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, let's see. Did I say, are there benefits?
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah.
While we're still looking for some others?
Yeah, is there any more questions?
Hello, is it Andrea or Andrea?
Andrea.
I'm Andrea. Hi.
Hi. But that asks, are there benefits promoting diversity and inclusion efforts in public relations, within public relations?
Yes, I think that there are benefits to promoting diversity and inclusion. Again, it's about being inclusive with everybody.
Yes.
So if you are a public relations agency looking for more clients, if you are a PR agency looking to build your sales, of course you want to be inclusive, because that's a potential client who's going to use their dollars for your business. For awareness with health, of course we want to be inclusive because we want everyone to know that we are pushing a particular message. And that includes everyone. So whether it's December 1st, excuse me, which is World AIDS Day, everybody should know their status and get tested. If there's a month for, I mentioned Black History Month, but I also know that there are months for every type of health observance you can possibly imagine. And so making sure that we are aware of those things, and so we actually hit every subset. So again, it's about inclusiveness with everyone. It's gonna build your bottom, or I guess increase your sales.
Gotcha.
I've done non-for-profit and governmental work, so I'm not very familiar with the sales side of things with PR. And that's the other thing about public relations, is knowing your lane, knowing your role. Kia is a great person that I can reach out to. There's some other great public relations folks here in Nashville that I have met since I've been here, who are great at that arm of public relations. And of course, I am in public health, and so I understand that that's my role. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity for all of us to learn from one another.
Okay.
I learn every single day. It's a wonderful field where every day is different. You know, you learn something new. We have public relation tips. We've got a lot of blogs and articles that we read. But again, it's helping to broaden not only our scope, but also impacting the individuals that or the community which we serve.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, if you have any questions, send some in. I see Yvonne sent another question. Do you think your HBCU experience helped your diversity awareness more than those going to a mainstream university or college? If yes, how?
So yes, let me just go ahead and answer that question. Yes. So it kind of gives you a little bit more of my background. So I actually attended a very small private school for the majority of my life in Indianapolis until my last 2 years of college, or last 2 years of high school, and attended a public high school there in Indianapolis. And I begged and begged and begged and begged and begged and begged my parents to let me leave the state. At the time, my mother was a professor at Indiana University. And so, of course, tuition would have been reduced significantly. And so I begged and begged to go to an HBCU because I really wanted to have that kind of opportunity to be with people who look like me and learn more about culture and the HBCU experience. And so I think it definitely helped me and kind of guide me and helped with my awareness of diversity. But that's only one part of it. Life taught me a lot of things.
Okay.
I think being in this business taught me a lot of things. When I was at Indiana University, the School of Medicine, I worked a lot with the students. And so getting to know students from all different spectrums from all over the world, because Indiana University is one of the top medical schools in the country. It was an amazing opportunity to learn from different backgrounds, but having the opportunity to work with researchers, again, helping me to realize that there was something missing. Right? You could open your eyes and see that, we really aren't identifying, we really aren't targeting or making sure that we are including all communities. And I think, again, if we just stop what we're doing sometimes and look, I always tell people that representation matters. One of the great things that public relations folks can do, especially those that work in the marketing side, if you're posting even photos on social media, if you're going to post a photo, if you're going to have, for example, a ribbon cutting, look at the folks that are at the table. Look at the folks that are behind the ribbon. Yes. You need to have diversity at that event. Yes. It's very important, because otherwise, even before the individuals open their mouths to say whatever it is that they're going to say, they could be giving a corporation or a community $10 million. But if they see a photo that is all one color, right? Yes. Or it does not have diversity and age, yes, they're going to get turned off. Yes. And so I think it's really important that representation matters. So we're, again, both racial and ethnic, but also socioeconomic. So especially making sure that we're highlighting everybody, from those who make only maybe $1,000 a month, those that make $10,000 or however much more a month, right? But also the age gap, the age difference. We've got a lot of millennials, and they are very active, and they are very vocal. And so making sure that you are bringing people on your staff. If you work in a PR agency, you should be recruiting and looking at the millennial groups, because sometimes we don't get them. Their slang can be a little off sometimes, but it is very interesting. But it's important that you listen to them, because they are a group, a subset of our communities that need that message. They need that product that perhaps you're selling, right? So in public health, especially, it's important that we listen to them as we write campaigns and awareness campaigns. The script that we might write for an NPR station, a radio station, maybe the exact same message, but it will be said a lot differently, for example, on a hip hop station. Yes. Same topic, same message, different way of saying it. Yes. And you only get to that part when you have a diverse staff, or you actually are talking to individuals that are on a committee or a board or within the community, to make sure that you're reflective of that community.
Oh, Andrea has a question. Where do you think we've made the most strides in diversity and inclusion in Nashville?
So that's a very interesting question, because I've only been here for what, 9 months now?
Gotcha. Yeah,
I'm new to Nashville, so I'm not really sure how much I can really talk about Nashville as much. I do know that I've noticed a lot of festivals, and I love that about Nashville. Not taking anything away from Memphis, because Memphis had wonderful festivals as well.
Yeah.
But in the 9 or 10 months that I have been here, I have been to so many arts festivals, music festivals, sporting events. It really is amazing. I hate to use the word hodgepodge, but like this hodgepodge of of people here in Nashville, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why it was so warming and welcoming me to the city. And I think that it says a lot about Nashville. It really truly is a melting pot. In the 9 to 10 months that I have been here, I've met people from all over the world, from all walks of life. I never meet a stranger. I talk to everybody. I think it's important that you get to know, who your neighbors are. I think it's good to know who is in the community, hear what their concerns are, hear their successes, because even if they're from a different group from you, or they don't have the exact same likes as you could learn from them and actually take some of that back to whatever it is that you do in your field. I think in public relations, it's important that you take a look and a viewpoint of your entire community. If you don't recognize your community, if you don't understand your community, how can you actually build a campaign, whether it's for sales or for awareness? How can you truly create that campaign that's going to be reflective and where people are going to want to buy, or they're going to want to get their flu shot or whatever, right? Yeah. So I think that's very important. I think there's definitely diversity and inclusion here. I love Nashville.
I agree, because I'm from Memphis, and I definitely agree that Nashville, not only is there a lot of festivals, it's not that Memphis didn't have that. They have a lot of different culture festivals and events, but I think Nashville does a great job of promoting them where I know more about it.
Right. And again, like Memphis has wonderful, just in case any of my Memphis friends have tuned in.
I love Memphis. I'm from Memphis, but
Memphis has wonderful festivals, absolutely. And I think a lot of times we get into this Memphis versus Nashville. Sure. Memphis and Nashville are two different cities, and cultures. I think that's also important, is knowing if you are a PR agency and you are trying to target individuals in Memphis, you need to understand the Memphis culture, the Memphis slang. Yes. They say Maine, for any of my friends that are on from Memphis. I did pick that up. And so understanding that culture of that community, that's what's really important if you're going to target that particular community for that awareness campaign. In public health, that's exactly what we do. So, for example, now that I'm at the state office, what we do in a campaign that we write for Memphis is going to be very different than what we write in Knoxville. Yes. That's two different communities. And so it's important that I understand those communities, that I'm talking to individuals in those communities, and so that there is that diversity at the table.
So we're almost out of time, but we got one last question from Kia. As there has been a larger push for diversity, equity, and inclusion, they differ and sometimes are confusing. Can you speak to the strategies/activities we can think about around health equity?
Health equity for all. That's my answer. There are a lot of wonderful presentations, and there's a lot of graphs out there. I can certainly send over to Ivy, and she can push it out. And I can also, when we get off, I can when I get back to my office, I can actually put some wonderful graphics and some information in the comment section. Health equity is important because everybody deserves access to health, right? Access to health care. I think it's important that we all have that opportunity to get those vaccinations, right? Everyone should have the opportunity to go to a park. It's a little hot outside some days, but everyone should have the opportunity to go out to the park and get some exercise and do what everyone else does in other communities, perhaps, where they're a little bit different, right? Yes. And so understanding that everybody deserves health equity. We have a wonderful program at the Tennessee Department of Health that works on that. We were working with HBCUs here in not only just Nashville, but we got a lot of HBCUs within the state. So we've got Lemoyne, we've got TSU, we've got Meharry at the table. And just a few weeks ago, we had a great meeting where we were learning from them what kinds of things we can help them with and how they can help us. We also, I want to put a plug in for our Office of Minority Health and Disparity Elimination. It's a very long name. Office of Minority Health work with faith-based institutions. So there are so many faiths in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we think, of Catholicism, we think of Protestant, we think of all, Baptist and this and that and the other, and all the smaller denominations. There are so many religious affiliations here in the state. Understanding those cultures and that they also deserve the same access to health as everyone else, right? So I think that's really important, and that's part of what Tennessee Department of Health does. And I'm very proud to work for an agency, a government agency that really is looking out for everybody and everyone in the state of Tennessee, and to our visitors. We want to make sure they have a safe trip when they are here in the state of Tennessee, and that they leave speaking wonderful things about our great state, and of course, especially here in Nashville, which is where our central office is.
Right. Well, Elizabeth, it's about that time.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for doing
That was
the
a quick
diversity
30
chat.
minutes.
I know. Thank you so much for doing diversity chat.
Thank you.
Please visit PRSANashville.com for any upcoming events and workshops. I believe in August there will be a membership mixer. And again, thank you for joining us, and have a great day. Bye.